Have you ever had your heart broken? It's not necessarily a broken heart due to romantic relationships, it can be for a variety of reasons. I've had my heart broken due to friendships that ended with things that went unresolved, apologies given but never accepted, forgiveness and closure desperately wanted but perhaps in most cases, not deserved. How do you deal with that kind of thing? Do you just sit there and go, well, I tried, without seriously re-examining what happened? What led to that point? What happens when you both recognize that nobody technically did anything wrong and you're still friends at the end of the day, but a relationship is destroyed nonetheless? Do you guys go on and act like nothing happened? Does someone become a different person entirely due to reliving the moment every single time they interact? It's complicated. I might be projecting, and sure, it's embarrassing to say, but it's through media that I'm able to re-examine how I would have done things differently in relationships that I've had, whether we were just friends or involved intimately. It's why I love things that focus on interpersonal drama over world building and action scenes. It might be why I love Higurashi so much. It's the only thing that got me hooked on characters before horribly ripping them through the worst things imaginable. I've always wondered why I'm like this. Am I such a horrible person that I need a Japanese cartoon to tell me how to feel? No, I don't think so. Or at least I don't want to think so. We all deal with things differently, and if watching this blue-haired idiot makes me realize what I've been like to most of my friends, then so be it. I think that's when too many losing heroines comes in, because the main character is simultaneously completely different from me, and yet, to put it in an easy to understand way, he just like me. For real. It's gonna be one of those videos. Yep. I think the interesting thing that this series handles is the other side of a romance anime. The people who were rejected, never had a chance, those who ruin relationships out of a short-sighted desire to see things perfected rather than letting people struggle and figure out their own way through their personal struggles. The people who still try, the people who maintain, the people who might as well be wet napkins with how much of an impact they leave. Relationships are hard to navigate, and the easiest thing you can do is communicate, but high school kids being high school kids, it's hard for them. It was hard for me. It was hard for you. The thing that I love, personally, is how each person handles the many forms of relationships that close doors and yet others open, ones that lead to characters becoming deeper friends than they otherwise would have. The way it shows picture-perfect stories born from the deepest recesses of high school anime, and how they persist after the picture-perfect ending in Confession. The rush to leave and go confront what someone said, despite how they feel, the talking through of feelings to prevent total fallout, the anger that leads two kids to realize just how much they love each other, the other side of the coins of being the person telling your crush to do what they want. The soft rejection without confession. The hard rejection and yet a refusal to give up. What it means to lose and how people deal with that in different ways, and how that leads to other consequences in their lives that they're feeling in every part of their body thanks to being a teenager. The experiences we felt at that time are amplified due to our brains constantly seeking new experiences, our thoughts rearranging themselves at every opportunity. I'm not going to play the Black Parade note because I think my friends would shoot me in the kneecaps if I did, but there is a bone in my body that can and will do Gangnam Style if you let me because I was 15 in 2013 and I was impressionable. I think it's important for any media to examine how others deal with heartbreak outside of just crying for a little bit and then being sad for a couple of episodes. I think it's important to ask how best do the characters we've come to care about over the course of a few months deal with themselves and their less than ideal circumstances after an event that's going to stick with them forever. Not necessarily always in a way that brings them more distress as they become adults, but in the way I assume my young adult audience looks back at themselves as teenagers and laughs at how serious they took things, how much emotion they felt, and how as they've grown and matured, it's all faded into a memory that you've looked back on fondly and recognize how much that you've grown. Hey, quick, before I get to the rest of the video, I just want to say thanks for sticking around. It'd mean the world to me if you went and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to hit 3,000 subscribers by June. If everything goes well, I just want to say that I've also opened up memberships and super thanks on my channel. I'll be releasing director's commentary on every video I've ever made on the channel as their own individual videos exclusive to members. Just $2 a month gives you access, and $5 puts you in the video credits. If you're more into a one-time donation thing, you can do so with a YouTube comment as a super thanks or even my very own Ko-Fi page, which you can also subscribe to as a member. I'd really appreciate the help because I need to, eat food. Thank you so much for sticking with me throughout the years, and I hope you continue to support me in the future. You're doing great. Thank you. I think it's gonna come as a shock to no one which girl is my favorite, and that speaks more about me than it should. I think it's smart that the series starts with someone who, on the surface, has the idyllic circumstances, the one who not necessarily loses the most, but instead has gained so much more. I think the reason I like Anna as much as I do comes from how she's a ball of energy. The Genki girl, you'd call it if you're a weeb. Where'd you get that mirror? One thing that's in common with both Anna and the other two heroines of the series is seeing the climactic turnaround point of any other romance anime. The point where any other series is on episode 12 and you're about to watch the ending credits for the final time as extra animation plays and the main couple get together properly. Only, you're on the other side of the table watching things go down in a completely different way. Anna plays out the most superficially dramatic scene of them all, yelling about how her crush needs to go get his girl for what they both really want. I think it's important to note how each girl deals with the realization that they've lost the proverbial battle. Anna immediately goes to cope by drinking from the same straw as her crush, trying to capture a moment that won't exist otherwise. The thought process being that by any means necessary, she'll still take what she can't have. Or rather, shouldn't have. Anna, to me, wants the superficial elements of a relationship, and that's reflected in the way that the couple she unceremoniously third wheels is almost all superficiality. Anna wants all of that, and that's why her climactic moment is her in a serious yelling match with her boy of choice. Her childhood friend, and there it is, the reason why it matters so much to her, and the reason she loses. Commonly in high school anime is the trope of the person who the main character spends their childhood with eventually not being the person they end up with in high school. Of course, some try to subvert this, like the anime The Rom-Com where the childhood friend won't lose, but here's your homework. Which of these three girls is the childhood friend? Which one is the Sonata favorite? And which one is the best character? The answers will simultaneously shock you and make you want to beat me with an aluminum bat for being predictable. I think you see that superficiality when it comes to her first action after her crush leaves on his climactic ending run to get his girlfriend. The indirect kiss. Now, maybe it's an American thing, but having shared a lot of drinks with guy friends, girlfriends, freshly showered goblins, I don't personally see the reason why anyone would want that. Maybe I'm just insane in the brain, but this has never been a huge deal to me. I think what nails her superficial ideals when it comes to relationships actually comes in the last episode, which is generally just a wrap-up episode. Nothing major happens unless you're weird like me and you eat this stuff up. You're watching a video about too many losing heroines. You absolutely are like me. One of the things she does throughout the series is want to keep up appearances rather than just state the truth to the people she cares about the most. The appearance being that she's totally got boys in tow, taking pictures to fake the date experience. There's even a moment like halfway through the series where she asks our main character if he has any hot guy friends for her to take to a party. It's like she's not after anything that means something, she's after appearances which she tries to keep at all costs. I think it's this vanity that makes her endearing in a sense. I like how it's her main character flaw, and yet despite all that is a genuine honesty to those who she considers extra close after her moment. Anna is my favorite. I don't think I can explain it better than that. Lemon is looking for a real relationship, and that's reflected in how she resolves her heartbreak rather than fighting it somehow. Anna also has a moment where she assumedly resolves her past love interest, but it's through a conflict that involves a bit of a fight. A short monologue that dictates that she's still her own person that's still working through the emotions and that nobody else can tell her how she feels about anything and what she's still got going on. Lemon, on the other hand, takes a different approach. Her climactic moment is actually in 2 episodes, one where she realizes that she's lost her proverbial race, see what I did there, and the one where she reconciles how this makes her feel and gets actual closure on the matter. This is something I can't say happens to the other girls. It's kind of sad in a way. The way she craves and still gets companionship from her male love interest is engaging to watch, and, if I'm allowed to say it, very relatable. The thing that makes me endeared to her character is that she's readily willing to talk about how she felt to the actual person in the love triangle that she was unknowingly in. It's portrayed that while she still has feelings, they don't impact the relationship much at all, but they do impact her. Her desire for actual companionship is reflected in how she, well, reflects Anna in a way. Both of these girls are childhood friends of their love interests, but they handle this completely differently. To Lemon, the fact that her guy was taken from her came as a complete surprise, not something necessarily pushed and encouraged like Anna did to hers. Anna actively chose to let herself be broken. Lemon was broken. The thing that Lemon does is that she still chooses to be a friend to the happy couple despite all of that. Never mind how her emotions still get the best of her. I'd like to think that I can chalk that up to a relatively accurate portrayal of a teenage girl being a teenage girl. A scene that I think speaks to her humanity and maturity is the one right before her mouth moves faster than her brain, when she deliberately tells her crush to prioritize his girlfriend because she recognized that that's something important in a relationship. Sure, it's rude to deny someone else the chance to get to know you, the important aspect of a friendship that's budding and surely meant to be, but Lemon's smart enough to realize that even if she's wanted, she might be third-wheeling and doesn't want to get in the way. I can't say I don't understand that. How she comes to terms with what to do next is really what captured me. It's hard to reconcile what to do when someone you fancy has an interest in someone else and pursues that. What you do next, even if you fuck up, says a lot about you. I like that Lemon talks out what she really wanted, trying to be okay with it by pushing her feelings under the rug and forcing herself to be happy for the couple. Which is something, I'm embarrassed to say, I've experienced. She recognizes her selfishness in some things, her weakness in this all, but feelings don't just go away, which is why it was equally important for her to meet with the couple and to talk things out. Just as important as the decision is to talk it out at all is the one to talk to both people, though we only get to see one real conversation. Lemon's desire for companionship that comes from a relationship, the company of a specific person rather than craving the superficial elements of it during and after the fact, comes out during the conversation she has with Ayano. I've neglected saying their names because I feel like going out and experiencing the anime for yourself is just as important as my dissection of it, but don't get used to it. Lemon admitted, assumedly days earlier, that she currently had feelings for the guy, and Ayano accepts this but rejects her. It's through their conversation that Lemon learns that their feelings were reciprocated, at least for a little bit, but nobody said anything. So things changed, people changed, relationships changed, and we got to the point we're at now. It might not be the norm now, but let me tell you, seeing two characters who fell in and out of love with each other truly expose themselves and their feelings to each other and leave as genuine friends on all three axes of the proverbial love triangle, it's fascinating. I'm so used to triangles like this just existing and one person losing and the relationship being awkward until all is forgiven, or two people just go on and be the power couple of the series. Hell, seeing a male character be so dense as to when a girl is clearly flirting with him that, even as a dense motherfucker of the male species myself, it hurts to watch. And I've had girls literally say they want to I think Komari is probably the weakest of the three girls to get the focus, and I say that because I don't think I can find a connection to any of the other girls. She doesn't have the losing childhood friend angle, god I hate saying that, but she does have what I can consider the most bold approach, which is why I love and hate how she gets a huge focus in the series. Hate's a strong word. I would have done it differently. I personally can't pinpoint to how at the moment, but I know I don't like what was done structurally, but that's not here or there. Komari is the only person who has an on-screen blown-out confession of love to her crush. Anna had her breakdown during episode 1, telling her boy toy to go to who he loves. Lemon had hers during episode 6 when she blurts it out in front of most of the main cast and reconciles that at the end of episode 7 with a newfound understanding of the dynamics that have come since Ayano got a girlfriend. Komari had a huge breakdown at the end of episode 3 and it never gets truly resolved or even dealt with until the later episodes. I don't think it even gets resolved. She's arguably worse off, but that's not here or there. What Komari wanted was support. Komari needs support. She's shy, she's not very much able to hold a verbal conversation. Her outbursts at the end of episode 3 was something very rare for the series. She's got people she needs to take care of, a club that needs her more than ever, and she wanted someone who she saw as reliable. Someone she saw as the key to everything she held dear. Her crush on her idiot man feels less like one born of affection and one that was formed out of a desire to keep things together. Though the affection angle is absolutely there, if only stated. I think her struggle for a support network only comes into play at the end of the series when she's set to take over the literature club as president and can't perform due to rejecting the very support she's given in an effort to be independent. The help she's freely offered yet barely accepts and half rejects as an effort to forget what she originally wanted a relationship to be about. I can't say that I don't understand, but I am very clearly looking at a weak-bodied neurodivergent girl, and that pains me a bit because I get where she's coming from. I feel really bad because a lot of Komari's development is wrapped up in the other main character of the series. But before I get into that, I just want to say, again, thank you for watching. It does mean the world to me that you're here, and I appreciate it. If you want to help me out, liking, commenting, and subscribing would mean so much to me, and you'd be helping out the channel way more than you know. I don't think I can state how much that last video changed a lot in my life, and it's because of you guys being so nice in the comments, and even correcting a couple of my mistakes. Believe me, I read every single comment. Speaking of, it worked last time, so let's try something again. If you made it this far, put KFC chicken tenders in your comment. I have a food thing going on. Can you tell what I think about all the time? Back to the video. Thank you so much. Nukamizu is... he's a lot. I've been trying really hard to not just recap the series because that's not what I like to do. It's not what I want to do, because there's a hardline difference between genuine analysis and just going through the entire series episode by episode and breaking down the plots, what I do and don't like about them. That content works for some people. It doesn't work for me. Nukamizu is the character whose POV we have, and he's very different. You can say what you want about a lot of generic anime protagonists, Lord knows I've eaten that shit up myself, but one thing they usually have in common is that they might be described as ordinary. A regular person, yet they always have a standout design element, something that sets them apart, whether that's their bombastic personality, group of friends, what have you. Nukamizu is different because, out of self-description, he's a background character. This screenshot from the first episode explaining a character dynamic, if you just didn't color Nukamizu here, he'd be indistinguishable from any background character. I think that the writers use this to subvert expectations. Wow, big YouTuber words there. Next, I'm gonna say ludonarrative dissonance when I talk about video games next. Don't test me. I fucking will. I think Nukamizu's personality shines when he's paired with one of the girls. Usually Anna, but that's besides the point. He's immediately shown to be a lover of romantic light novels, and I think that paints his worldview of how the other people in his little circle do things. He's immediately on the uptick on what's going on, but also recognizes that fiction is fiction, and these are real people. Each episode focuses on how he gives an aspect of himself up for other people to experience. His lack of understanding on what friends actually are allows him the space to connect with people from all walks of life. I think episode 4 is one of my favorites because it's the first time he's had a real fallout with anyone, and that led right into Anna's development. With the self-awareness of who he is in relation to others, he tells Anna that their time together isn't necessary anymore because he doesn't want her reputation to be destroyed, even if it hurts him. The rumors were enough for him to decide that he wasn't worth it, and that's something I understand. Very, very deeply. It fuels into Anna fully coming to terms with her feelings for her crush, perfect anime rom-com boy Sosuke. I think it's fitting that Sosuke, the person who inadvertently got Anna and Nukamizu hanging out, was the first person to outright say to Nukamizu's face that he's happy that they're going out. Never mind that they're not dating, like, at all, but I think it's poetic that he's the first person to project that sort of thing onto others when Anna projected a lot onto him, and still does. Nukamizu overstepped his boundaries by deciding what Anna should feel, and that's something that you just don't see explicitly stated. In a lot of romantic dramas like this, characters just forgive each other with an "I'm sorry" without anything personal attached to that. Nukamizu states, in no uncertain terms, that he's overstepped his boundaries. That friend thing is interesting too, because Nukamizu's had none for, assumedly, his entire life up until that point. Which is why it's one of his greatest developments to earnestly ask if he and Anna can be friends. Nukamizu's not dense, he's just not super up to code on what he says actually means. It's like he's the most autistic guy in the room who doesn't know how his words come across, especially when he's on the rooftop with a cute girl, says they need to talk right then and there, and just asks for friendship. Huh, I wonder who that's for. Maybe I'm projecting, but listen to me, yeah? Nukamizu, throughout the series, is shown to be reliable, if I can call it that. Through his ability to form connections, he's able to band together people from all parts of his friend circle to come together for a common cause, which is helping others. You see this when he's dead set on helping Kamari when she's sick, when he gathers the entire literature club to help set up the Culture Festival exhibit, when he's the first person called to help Lemon cheer up after her big outburst because it's recognized that he's a key part of the solution and not just a bit part of the team. I think it's this aspect of him that provides the best reason for him to be the POV character. Outside of authorial intent, that is. I mentioned how Kamari's story is heavily intertwined with Nukamizu as a character, and it's about time I explained the how. The tail end of the series is about a cultural festival, and Kamari's promotion to being the club president being in the middle of this. Due to her rejection from the current president, she's stuck in this rut of needing to be totally self-sufficient. It's this aspect of her that I touched on, but didn't really expand on because it also ties to Nukamizu. For the second time in the series, he way oversteps his boundaries after repeatedly being told not to do so, to let her try and ultimately fail and have a massive blowout. It's this insistence from both of them that makes them butt heads. Nukamizu's constant assurance that he wants to help and the almost antagonizing way he forces her to accept it. Not even in the way that a lot of people force help onto others, like making the person regressing into their apartment go out to lunch because they've holed up in their office for a week. I'm not projecting. Nukumizu forces help in the way of removing autonomy from Komari, eventually blowing up in his face at a meeting where he asserts himself as the president of the literature club, ousting Komari and causing her to lash out. Nukumizu is in the wrong here. He did the wrong thing. Despite knowing it was necessary, despite eventually leading things to be somewhat okay, he very intentionally took away from the one thing Komari thought she had, her presidency. To her, it was her support being taken away for a second time. I think what follows afterwards is very significant of his character. What he says, how it's taken, and what's truly meant by that are all different things, and you see that stuff reverberated throughout the entire series. Misunderstandings easily cleared up, sure, but they exist nonetheless. The first one I can think of is when Sosuke, Anna's crush, calls him outside and he immediately goes to thinking it's a shakedown when it's a positive affirmation. That leads to him admitting to taking away agency from Anna, and hell, doing it to her in front of her face, but still. When he tries to reconcile with Anna about being friends, she kind of soft rejects him, thinking he's about to pull her into a love confession, which is how it comes across, especially in the English dub, good lord. And in the 11th episode, he says that he won't leave Komari, which reads like another confession too, but he just wants to be her friend at the end of the day. What he says, how it comes across, and how that affects people's perception of him despite wanting to keep a certain image of being an ordinary, if a little weird guy. Like, I can't think of anyone else who can say which water fountain in the school tastes the best except for Nukumizu and me. Oh, come on, I didn't ask for this. I'm not predictable. It's not true. This is bullshit. I'm not predictable. I'm not. Oh, hi, Mark. It's hard to explain why I like him as much as I do without going super in-depth about some scenes. Specific ones involve character interactions, like after Lemon's outburst in episode 6, when he forsakes his background character identity and takes on the role of the leading man in order to go after her after she runs away in fear of the situation she's caused. It's one of the actions that truly makes him feel like a character you want to continue following and see where it goes. A real Tag and Bink situation, you dig? Did that joke land? Anybody? I'm putting Star Wars in the tags.
So is this an audience or a mosaic?
There's many more situations where Nukumizu is the guy with his head screwed on straight more often than not. He talks sense into Anna during episode 7 when she's kinda trash-talking Ayano, and later he's the first person to sit down with Lemon and really talk things out with her and let her truly experience her emotions. You know what? I think this scene is important as an autistic person myself, so I'm gonna talk about it. I think it's genius to show that these two just talk things out and Lemon is allowed to feel. Nukumizu doesn't sit closer to her at any moment. He doesn't reach around and put an arm around her, none of that. They're just accepting of each other's company, and I think that says a lot more about their relationship than the thing that follows right after. I think it's important to show in this scene and others that his love language isn't physical touch like it could be for other people. Maybe I'm projecting, but I don't like it when people touch me. So I very much assume that other people don't like it when I touch them. It's different when it's involuntary. Sometimes people bump into each other. I work in a kitchen, so it happens all the time. But reaching out and touching people is something I do very rarely. I think one of the most telling things is how Nukumizu intentionally downplays his own involvement while simultaneously being the most involved character of all. Maybe it's due to him being the main character, and sure, whatever floats your boat, but ping-ponging back and forth between recognizing that he's supposed to be the side character in all of these main heroine stories and being the main character of his own budding drama, I like that a lot. It's an interesting dynamic, at least. I'm 12 pages down in the script, and I didn't even talk about the thing that this video was originally about. I think what accentuates everything is the way that everything in this show looks. If I could boil it down to one thing, I think that Makeine, or Too Many Losing Heroines, is the most anime-looking anime I've ever seen. Enhancing the romantic dramedy that this show is the way it looks, the way it uses light and shadow, character designs, and overall post-processing to make this show as ethereal as the character interactions need it to be. It reminds me of a time when I was able to throw material worries away for 8 hours, focus on the homework I was assigned and the friendships I was maintaining. Whether that was through talking at lunch, after school, before school, during class, what have you. Granted, I rarely had classes with my friends. It's crazy to think about that. I might make the visual and sonic landscape of this series its own video. I think it'll be a great time. Here's the bottom line. I think focusing a story on the aftermath of a romance anime, as a romance anime in and of itself, is an interesting idea. It leaves you with the fact that the other girls, main heroines of their own stories, won. We see the ending, or hell, maybe middle part of a different story take place almost in the background of our own, and that's something worth exploring. Plenty of other shows that feature love triangles have our main character picking one partner over the other after weeks, months, maybe years of development, always leaving someone unhappy, whether that be in the form of characters or in the audience. What this series does is take that idea and turn it on its head, focusing instead on the characters and why they weren't good enough in the first place, or even if they were, why there was a hang-up that prevented them from their happy ending. The way they reflect each other in their personalities, or what they seek in potential partners, is part of why it's so engaging to see them pick up the pieces and attempt to move on. That being said, it's important that they have something to keep them all together. I think the greatest asset is having them all be bound to a different character who has the potential to exhibit attraction, and having them be the nucleus that bridges the gap left by the people who have been rejected and allows them the space to work through their feelings. Someone who seeks out something they desperately need. A person who doesn't want them to get over it and prove themselves as the better partner, but someone who allows them to see what they need to do to improve themselves even if it's slow. Someone with the wherewithal to put themselves into a space where maybe they don't belong, but are desperately needed. Too Many Losing Heroines is about the people who need each other being there for each other, despite not being who they want. And I feel that. And you should too. Too Many Losing Heroines is streaming now on wherever you get your anime from. I'm not your mom. With all that said, my name is Sonata. Thank you for watching. And here's to a happy new year. Oh my god.